You think I should make another Spheal? A Shiny Spheal? Don't worry, we're not abandoning this girl, but I am going to put her to the side for right now to start a new project. Meet Neve the Narwhal. He was the first one that became my last Spheal, and he will be who I'm using to make this Spheal. He's very squishy, and he's very cute, but we are going to have to do some flipper reconstruction, some tail reconstruction, and remove that horn to be right. First, I'm sanding the squishy. All sanding a squishy does is it gives the surface something that the paint can stick to when you put your fresh coat on, so it'll grip and not peel. Here I go in, cutting the horn, but I'm also going to be cutting off the flippers because Spheal's flippers are actually higher up on his body, so I'm going to need to reposition those and get them re-glued. Poor guy, he's having a lot of reconstructive surgery going on here. And get out. Now we smooth out where we've made holes, and then it'll be time to start gluing. Welcome back as we continue to work on making our one Spheal into our other. You'll notice that what I'm pointing at is the little muzzle on the first Spheal, and I need to carve that out of a chunk of foam. So all I'm doing here is I'm just taking the foam block that I've got from my spare bag of foam, and this is actually from the right side of the pillow that we're using to make Gardevoir. Congratulations to my follower who guessed it! But this is part of her, but we're just going to use some spare foam and we're going to carve out those little cute mouthpieces, just like this. So as you can see here, I'm just cleaning up the edges on it, making sure that it's going to go on smooth. I will also smooth out with puffy paint, and then I'm going to get the second one, and here we go. Now we got two. So the next step for these is just to go ahead and get them glued on to the squishy. So you take your fabric glue, and Mariah Elizabeth, who is who I learned everything I know from, always says never use too much glue. It only takes a very thin layer. So I go off camera because I'm grabbing my little stirring stick that I'm going to spread that glue with, and then it'll be time to actually put it on the squishy. And now that I've been fed, we'll be continuing where we left off on this little Spheal squishy. So I've gone ahead and attached his little tiny mouthpieces with some fabric glue and let that sit for a while. And now I'm just going to go ahead and fill that in with puffy paint, cover it up, and get rid of some of that foam texture that's just sitting on front. Ooh, look at that go. It's like icing. Damn. This will take a couple of hours to dry. I'm actually going to leave it overnight. Off camera, I'm also going to be attaching his little feet. You can see one of his flippers that's been detached right in front of him on the left there. But we'll be getting those attached too. But for now, we're just going to smooth out this puffy paint. I am not using a paintbrush for this. I am using that same paint stick that I used for the glue because puffy paint will ruin your paintbrush. It just does not act the same afterwards. It was one of the very first lessons Mariah ever taught me. Smoothing this up, finishing it out, and then I'm going to feather off the edges, and I will let this dry. Hi, and welcome back to the Spheal makeover. As you can see, I've gotten his little mouthpieces to stick on, and I've gotten his adjusted feet to stick on, although they need to be covered with another layer. This coat of puffy paint should help me get some of that texture out of the foam, and then we will have a nice smooth surface that looks beautiful when we put the final paint job over it. I'm just going in and smoothing that out. This may need to be done one or two more times. It just depends on how much of that foam absorbs the paint. And that looks good. Now I will be sealing the cracks between the squishy and the flippers just with another layer of puffy paint, and I'm going to smooth that out so that when it dries we won't have any lumps or weird things that we're trying to cover with our official paint job. Once I have these edges feathered out, I will let the mouthpiece and these flippers dry again before I do anything else to this squishy. There we go. Oh my goodness. Yeah, that's what you looked like too, Spheal. I know. Hi, and welcome back to the next Spheal update. Right now, I'm just focusing on getting Spheal's tail to look like the one on the right. So I'm going to be taking a scrap piece of foam that I've got right there, and I'm going to cut it into that perfect little V shape to get glued into that spot. Do me a favor and let me know in the comments below if the black background actually makes this easier or if it makes no difference and this is still hard to see. I'm not sure, I'm just trying to figure it all out. Back to the squishy. That looks like a pretty decent shape. I'm going to go ahead and get this glued with my fabric fusion using just a very thin layer. I know that it's not perfect, but don't worry. You can still cut things once they're glued on the squishy, and sometimes it's actually easier because you can see really exactly what shape you need to get things into. So for now, this is good, and I'm going to rubber band it and let it dry. I'm not going to show you really me trying to put the rubber bands on for more than this little clip because I suck at rubber banding things. Don't know how that happens. Finally started recording in double time, so I gotta talk in double time too. We're gonna be doing Spheal's tail here, so I'm taking the rubber bands off, and you'll see real quick what that foam looks like. That's the shape we need to get it into, matching the blue Spheal, so I'm just gonna trim that up. Then I'm gonna fill in the edges with puffy paint when it looks good. And I'm noticing something. This Spheal needs ears. So I'm taking a little piece of scrap foam and I'm going to carve these into two little ear shapes just like before. There we go. That was a smooth transition. I'm not going to bother with fabric fusion because these are so small. I'm just going to go ahead and glue them on with puffy paint. And after I get them set on, it'll be time to do my puffy paint coat on this squishy before we do the real coat. So you're going to see here briefly after these are situated, I'm going to be filling in that tail, I'm going to be filling in those ears, and then I'm going to be filling in the narwhal's eyes below Spheal's face, and we'll get those eyes completely covered up so that they don't come through in the new paint job, which comes next. Hi and welcome back as I turn this narwhal squishy into a Spheal. Right now I'm doing the very first base coat. I will be doing 2 or 3 coats of this to get any texture out of the squishy. It'll also help the actual color that's going on, the pink that will follow, show up a little bit better instead of having to fight with the green underneath it. Pausing for dinner. Now I'm going to go ahead and start putting that pinkish, purplish, mauve color that is a Shiny Spheal onto the squishy. And this too I'm going to do a couple of coats on just to make sure that everything is well covered and smoothed out. This first one looks a little bit streaky. It's totally normal, I just need to keep going. Now I'm doing the cream color that is on Spheal's belly. It just takes a couple of coats to show up as vibrantly as it does on the one that's already done. Moving right along into coat 2 of the pink. And then we will follow this up with coat 2 of the tan. And the last video will be details and the reveal. Welcome back to the final video of painting the Shiny Spheal squishy. I completely missed getting the eyes on camera. Whoops! So those are already done, but I'm just going to be filling in the ears, doing the line work, putting on his snout, putting in the teeth. Obviously, it will just be the outline. We'll go over that with white later. And for any mistakes that you see, I'm going to be using that paper towel to just clean up my lines and get them thin enough. It's one of the best things about fabric paint when it's still wet. It's very easy to just wipe whatever you need to away before it dries. Just a hint, when you do any outlines like this, or you're gonna need to put white over it, whether it's pupils or it's teeth or whatever, just make sure that you wait until the black paint is completely dry. You'll see when I go to dot the eyes that I did not wait on the very first coat, and it creates kind of a black swirl. But we're just gonna get these in, and there's the result. Shiny Spheal.